I didn't mean to catch him. That's what I told myself. The first night I saw my neighbor doing something he clearly thought no one would ever witness. It started with a flicker of light across the narrow courtyard of our old brick apartment building. A single lamp glowed in the window directly opposite mine. I had just moved into the city, new job, new life, new attempt at figuring out who I was outside of the expectations I grew up with. I wasn't looking for love. I definitely wasn't looking for trouble. But sometimes trouble glows softly behind half-closed blinds. I had just finished unpacking the last box. The room still smelled faintly of cardboard and fresh paint. I leaned against the window frame, sipping lukewarm coffee, staring out at the quiet neighborhood. That's when I saw him. He was in his kitchen, sleeves rolled up, music playing faintly. He was dancing, alone, carefree, unaware of the world. Not the awkward kind of dancing people do when they're being watched. This was something else. Something private, honest. He spun once, laughing at himself, then reached for a glass on the top shelf. When he bent down to grab something he dropped, I instinctively looked away. I immediately looked back, not because it was scandalous, because it was real. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just being in, yet the intimacy of it felt forbidden. I shouldn't have been watching, but I didn't close the curtain. I learned that the next morning, I nearly collided with him in the hallway outside our apartments. Oh, sorry. We both said at the same time, up close, he was even more striking. Dark hair slightly messy, faint stubble, eyes the color of late evening skies. He wore a simple gray t-shirt and jeans, but he carried himself like someone who knew how to fill a room without trying. "I'm Adrian," he said, offering his hand. His grip was warm, firm, comforting. "Daniel," I replied. His lips curved into a subtle smile. Not flashy. Not overly charming. Just curious. You just moved in, right? I heard boxes at midnight. I winced. Guilty. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice playfully. "You weren't assembling furniture at 2 a.m., were you?" "Maybe," he laughed. And for a brief second, his hand brushed mine again as he stepped aside to let me pass. It lingered, just slightly. Did he mean to do that? As I walked toward the stairs, I could feel his gaze on my back. Or maybe I imagined. Don't read into it. That's what I told myself while pretending to focus on work that day, but my mind kept drifting back to his laugh too. The way he tilted his head when he listened too. The fact that he had no idea I'd seen him dancing in his kitchen, like the world didn't exist. Or maybe he did know. Maybe he left the blinds slightly open on purpose. No, that was ridiculous, right? 3 days later, I knocked on his door. I had rehearsed a dozen excuses in my head. Borrow sugar. Return a package. Complain about noise. Instead, when he opened the door, all I managed was, "Do you have coffee?" He blinked, then grinned. "Is this your smooth way of asking me out?" My face burned. "No. I mean yes. I mean no. I just ran out and he stepped aside. Relax, Daniel. Come in." His apartment smelled like citrus and something woody. Clean but lived in. A guitar rested against the couch. Books were stacked unevenly on the coffee table. "So," he said, pouring coffee into 2 mugs, "are you always this nervous around neighbors?" "Only the ones who dance in their kitchens." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Silence. He slowly turned toward me, one eyebrow raised. "You've seen that, huh?" I swallowed. Just once. He studied me carefully, then handed me the mug. As our fingers brushed, his thumb grazed the side of my hand deliberately this time. "Did you like the performance?" he asked softly. My heart was hammered. It was impressive. He stepped closer, not invading my space, just enough that I could feel warmth radiating from him. "Good," he murmured. "I'd hate to embarrass myself. You didn't." His eyes flickered down to my lips for half a second, then back up. The tension was subtle but undeniable, like the air before a summer storm. He saw me, for some reason. That didn't bother me. It excited me. Daniel had this shy intensity about him, like he was constantly holding something back. Every time I teased him, he blushed, but he didn't retreat. He leaned in, just a little. When he laughed, he tilted his head down, like he was embarrassed by how genuine he sounded. I wanted to see what he looked like when he stopped being careful. It happened naturally. "Want to come over tonight?" Adrian asked casually one evening in the hallway. "For coffee?" "For something stronger," he winked. I tried to play it cool. Sure, his apartment looked different at night. Softer lighting, a candle flickering near the window, music humming low in the background. We settled onto the couch, knees almost touching, almost halfway through the movie. I reached for the popcorn at the same time he did. Our hands collided. He didn't pull away, neither did I. Instead, he shifted slightly, his knee brushing mine. "Careful," he whispered. "You're invading my space." I smiled. "You're the one leaning." He nudged my shoulder playfully. I nudged back at one point. He bent forward to grab the remote from the floor, and I couldn't help the quick glance I stole when he sat back up. He caught me. A slow grin spread across his face. "See something interesting?" I cleared my throat. "Your rug pattern is very distracting." He laughed so hard he grabbed my arm for balance, his fingers tightening briefly, instinctively pulling me closer. For a moment, neither of us moved away. The movie ended, but neither of us got up. The silence wasn't awkward. It was charged. Adrian reached up suddenly and adjusted the collar of my shirt. "It's crooked," he said softly, his fingers brushed against my neck. A simple touch, but it sent warmth rushing through me. "You always fix people's clothes?" I asked quietly. "Only when I want an excuse to touch them." My breath caught. He realized what he'd said and smiled. "Just a little shy this time." So he continued lightly. "Are you always watching your neighbors?" "Only when they're doing the wrong thing." "And what's the wrong thing, Daniel?" I leaned closer, our faces inches apart, making me think about them when I'm supposed to be working. His expression shifted, less teasing. "More honest? I don't mind being a distraction." Neither did I. For a heartbeat, I thought he was going to kiss me. Instead, he pulled back slightly, standing up. "Walk you to your door?" The tension remained unfinished, deliberate. As we stepped into the hallway, I noticed something unusual. A man stood near Adrian's door. Pretending to check his phone, he looked up briefly when he saw us. There was something in his eyes. Recognition. Judgment? Adrian's posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Good night, Daniel," he said. His tone suddenly guarded. The man lingered, watching, and in that moment, I realized something. Maybe I hadn't caught Adrian doing the wrong thing. Maybe someone else thought we were. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, my mind replayed every touch, every glance, every almost dash kiss. This is dangerous, I thought. But danger had never felt so warm across the courtyard. His light flickered on again, and this time, he didn't close the blinds at all. That man in the hallway changed everything, up until that moment. Whatever was growing between Adrian and me felt like playful glances, teasing comments. Fingertips brushing like accidents we both secretly engineered. But the way Adrian stiffened when he saw him, that wasn't playful. That was fear. The next morning, I found myself standing at my window again, coffee in hand. Staring across the courtyard, Adrian was there watering a small plant near his sink. His shoulders looked tense. He wasn't dancing this time. No music. No careless movements, just quiet. Who was that man? And more importantly, why did Adrian look like he'd been caught? I hated how much I cared already. My phone buzzed. "Adrian, coffee tonight. Or are you spying from a distance again?" A smile tugged at my lips. Me. "Only spying if you're putting on a show." A few seconds passed. "Adrian, careful what you wish for." My pulse quickened. That evening, I didn't wait for him to invite me in. I knocked with more confidence than I felt. He opened the door almost immediately. "You look serious," said, stepping aside. I saw him again, I replied quietly. His expression fell just a fraction. Who? The guy from the hallway? Adrian walked toward the kitchen, pouring 2 glasses of water instead of coffee this time. That's Marcus, he said flatly. The name lingered in the air, and I pressed. He leaned against the counter, jaw tightening. He's my ex. The word hit harder than I expected. Oh, yeah. There was no bitterness in his tone, just exhaustion. He moved into the building a month ago, Adrian continued. Different floor. I didn't know until I ran into him in the elevator. Complicated. You could say that. I stepped closer without thinking. Is he the jealous type? Adrian let out a soft, humorless laugh. He's the, I don't want you, but no one else can have you type. That explained the look in the hallway. I didn't want. Daniel dragged into this. Marcus had always had a way of making affection feel like a battlefield. If I smiled at someone too long, it was a problem. If I didn't text back fast enough, it was a problem. Loving him had felt like walking on cracked glass. Daniel wasn't cracked glass. He was sunlight, and sunlight deserved better than my shadows. Later that night, Adrian suggested we step out onto his tiny balcony. The city hummed below us. Traffic in the distance. Someone laughing a block away. The air was cool. Brushing against our skin, we stood close to be accidental. You don't have to explain everything to me, I said gently. I know, but I want you to. He looked at me then, not teasing. Not guarded, just honest. Marcus didn't like that I was. Open, Adrian admitted. I've always been comfortable with who I am. He wasn't? You mean publicly? He nodded. He'd hold my hand at home. But outside, he'd drop it like it burned him. That quieted something inside me. I'm not hiding, I said softly. His eyes searched mine. I know. A breeze swept past us. Instinctively, I reached out and brushed something off his shoulder. Nothing really there. It's just an excuse. You had dust, I murmured. He smiled faintly. Sure I did. Our hands lingered near each other, not touching, but wanting to. This isn't just flirting anymore. Hearing about. Marcus stirred something protective in me. I didn't like the idea of Adrian dimming himself for someone else. I'd spent years doing that too, smiling politely when relatives asked about girlfriends, laughing off jokes, avoiding certain pronouns and stories about my past. Maybe that's why Adrian felt familiar. He wasn't ashamed. He was tired of being made to feel like he should be. And I wanted to be the reason he stopped. Feeling tired 2 nights later, it happened. Adrian and I were leaving the building together, just a late walk. Nothing dramatic as we stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. Then a hand stopped them. Marcus. He stepped inside. Eyes flickering between us. Silence. Tight. Uncomfortable. Adrian's single quotes arm brushed mine. This time, it wasn't playful. It was grounding. Marcus finally spoke. Didn't know you'd moved on so fast. Adrian's voice was calm. I didn't know I needed permission. Marcus scoffed. Just saying. Some people don't appreciate being replaced. He left, Adrian replied evenly. Remember? The tension thickened. I felt it in my chest, in my jaw, in the way my fingers twitched with the urge to reach for Adrian's hand. But not yet, the elevator dinged. Marcus stepped out first. Glancing back, be careful, he muttered. He gets bored easily. The doors shut. And for the first time since I met Adrian, he looked shaken. Is that true? I asked quietly once we reached the sidewalk. Adrian stopped walking. Do you think I'd waste my time if I was bored? No. Then don't let him get in your head. He stepped closer, his frustration simmering beneath the surface. I'm not bored, Daniel. If anything, you scare me. That caught me off guard. Why? Because I actually care. Confession hung between us. Raw, unfiltered. I swallowed. That doesn't scare me. It should. Why? Because Marcus isn't wrong about one thing, Adrian admitted. I've never let anything get serious since him, and now His gaze softened. Now I want to. There it was against that magnetic pull. Stronger this time, no jokes. No deflection, just truth. Adrian reached up and gently pushed a stray strand of hair from my forehead. His fingers brushed my temple, sliding slowly down the side of my face. You overthink, he murmured, and you deflect. A faint smile. Fair. My hand found his wrist knot, stopping him. Just holding him there. You don't have to fight this alone. I said, his thumb traced lightly along my jawline. Maybe I don't want to fight it at all. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He leaned closer, close enough that I could feel his breath. Then footsteps echoed from the building entrance. We stepped apart. Instinctively, Marcus stood there, again watching Adrian's dog tightened. He looked at Marcus, then at me, and this time he didn't hesitate. He reached for my hand, interlaced our fingers, firm, visible, not hidden. Marcus's expression shifted: anger, disbelief, maybe regret. But Adrian didn't look at him again. He looked at me. Let's go, he said softly. We walked down the street together. Hands still linked. My pulse hadn't slowed. Not from fear, from something, stronger pride. Pride. I'm done hiding if Marcus wanted a reaction. He'd get one, just not the one he expected. Daniel's hand in mine felt steady, real. This wasn't rebellion. It wasn't revenge. It was choice. And for the first time in a long time, chose openly. Later that night, back in his apartment, the air felt different, charged in a deeper way. Not just attraction, decision. Adrian handed me a mug of tea. Our fingers brushed, and instead of pulling away, he squeezed gently. You okay? He asked. Yeah, sure. I nodded. He studied me for a moment, then smiled faintly. You're braver than you look. Don't tell anyone. He laughed softly and then, in one fluid movement, stepped closer. Not rushed, not desperate, just intentional. His hand rested lightly at my waist. Daniel, he whispered. Yes. Tell me to stop if this is too much. Not. His forehead rested. Briefly against mine, a quiet promise. Then he pulled. Back just enough to look at me. No more almosts, he said. And, for the first time since I moved into that building, I believed him. No more almosts. Adrian's voice wasn't teasing this time. It was steady, certain, and that certainty did something to me. For weeks, everything between us had hovered in that delicious space of almost touching, almost confessing, almost kissing. The tension had been playful. Electric now. It felt deeper, more. It's dangerous. Not because it was wrong, but because it was real. We stood in the middle of his living room, the city lights slipping in through the window behind him. His hand rested at my waist. Warm and grounding. Tell me if I'm moving too fast, he murmured again. You're not. My voice barely sounded like mine. He searched my face like he was memorizing it, then leaned in slowly, intentionally. When his lips brushed mine, it wasn't rushed or hungry. It was soft, testing, like he was asking a question. I answered by leaning closer. His hand tightened just slightly at my waist, pulling me a fraction nearer. My fingers slid up to the back of his neck, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my touch. The kiss deep and not explicit. Not frantic, just warm and full of everything we hadn't said yet. He pulled back first, but only an inch. Still okay? He whispered against my mouth. I smiled, breathless. You talk too much. He laughed softly and kissed me again. This time, I didn't think about who might be watching from the hallway. I didn't think about Marcus. I didn't think about the courtyard windows for the first time in years. I wasn't calculating how something might look. I was just there with him. He kisses like he means it. No hesitation. No pretending it's casual. Marcus used to kiss me like he was checking a box quick. efficient, always with one eye on who might see. Daniel kisses like the world can watch and he doesn't care. That scares me, but it also makes me want to be braver. We ended up on the couch, sitting closer than before. His knee pressed against mine. His arm draped loosely around my shoulders, like it had always belonged there. "You're quiet," he said, brushing his thumb absent-mindedly along my sleeve. "I'm thinking, dangerous." I nudged his shoulder playfully. "About how ridiculous it is that it took us this long." He tilted his head. "We had to build suspense." "Oh, was that your plan?" "Absolutely. Very strategic," I laughed, and without thinking leaned into him. He adjusted instinctively, pulling me slightly closer. It was such a natural movement that it startled me. We fit, not perfectly, but honestly. He reached up suddenly and fixed my collar again. "You do that a lot," I said. "Fix your collar." "Find excuses," smirked. "You notice everything, only when it matters." His expression softened. For a moment, the teasing dropped away, and in its place was something fragile. A knock at the door shattered it. We both froze. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Don't move," he stood, walking to the door with controlled calm. I stayed on the couch, trying to slow my pulse. He opened it just enough to see who it was. "Marcus," I could hear his voice through the crack. "You've made your point," Aku said coolly. "There is no point," Adrian replied. "There always is with you." I stood slowly, stepping closer, not intruding. Just present, Marcus noticed me immediately. His eyes hardened. "You're really doing this?" he asked Adrian. Adrian didn't raise his voice. Didn't flinch. "Yes," Marcus scoffed. "You think he understands what you're like?" Adrian's hand flexed at his side. "Don't." "I'm just saying," Marcus continued, glancing at me. "He doesn't know how quickly you get restless." That word again, restless. Something clicked in my mind. "You're not upset he moved on?" said quietly. Marcus looked at me, surprised I'd spoken. "You're upset he moved on publicly." Silence. Adrian turned slightly toward me. Marcus's expression shifted. Not angry now, exposed. "You don't get it." Marcus muttered. "Then explain it," Adrian shot back. Marcus hesitated. And for a split second, I saw it, not possessiveness, fear. "I wasn't ready," Marcus admitted finally, to be visible. The word hung in the air. Adrian's shoulders relaxed just slightly. "I know," he said softly. "But I was." Marcus swallowed. "You make it look easy." "It's not," Adrian replied. "It's just necessary." There it was. Not a fight, not jealousy. A fracture. Marcus looked between us one last time, then stepped back. "I hope you know what you're doing," he said quietly. Adrian didn't hesitate. "I do." The door closed, and just like that, the ghost in the hallway wasn't a threat. Anymore, just a reminder, he chose me. Not to prove a point, not to rebel, but because he wanted to. And suddenly, this didn't feel like stolen glances across windows. It felt like the beginning of something neither of us could pretend was casual anymore. Adrian leaned back against the door, exhaling slowly. "You okay?" I asked. He looked at me and, for once, was no mask. "I don't want you thinking I'm some thrill seeker," he said quietly, "or that this is about proving something. I don't." He walked toward me slowly. "I've been careful since him," he admitted. Detached, safe, and now he stopped in front of me. "Now I don't want safe." My heart thudded. "You don't?" "No." He reached for my hand again, lacing our fingers. "I want steady," he said. Not hidden, not rushed, just real. The simplicity of it made my throat tighten. "Good," I whispered, "because I don't do hidden either." The rain scene as if the universe needed cinematic timing. Rain began tapping softly against the windows. Adrian glanced toward it, then back at me. "Walk," he suggested in the rain. "You scared?" I smirked. "You wish." Minutes later, we were outside. Rain soaking through our shirts, laughing like idiots. At one point, he grabbed my wrist and pulled me under a small awning to shield us from the heavier Drops. You're going to catch a cold, he teased. You dragged me out here. His hand remained on my wrist a second too. Long water dripped from his hair onto his forehead. Without thinking, I brushed it away. He stilled at the touch. You do that a lot? He said softly. What? Find excuses. Right. I smiled. You notice everything. He laughed under his breath, then suddenly tugged me closer. Not rough, just playful. Your trouble, he murmured. You started it, did I? You left your blinds open, he grinned. Maybe I wanted to be seen. The confession wasn't loud, but it felt monumental. Back upstairs, damp and breathless. We stood outside our apartment doors. The courtyard light flickered behind us. Stay, he said quietly. I didn't hesitate this time, inside. The air felt warmer than before. Not because of the heat, because the distance. Between us was gone. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. He pulled me into him slowly, deliberately. My hands slid up his chest, feeling his steady heartbeat beneath my palms. This okay? He whispered again. More than our kiss this time wasn't tentative. It was certain, not explicit, but full of everything building between us. When we finally pulled apart, his foreheads resting together, I realized something. I hadn't caught my neighbor doing the wrong thing. I'd caught him waiting to be brave. And somehow, he'd made me braver too as the rain continued outside. Adrian brushed his thumb along my jaw gently. No more watching from windows, said. I smiled. Only if you stop dancing alone. His grin returned bright. Unguarded. Deal. Love isn't tested by jealousy. Jealousy is loud, obvious, easy to point at. The real test is what happens after the storm passes. When it's quiet, when no one is. Watching. When you have to decide whether you're brave enough to stay. I woke up in Adrian's apartment for the first time on a Sunday morning. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, stretching across the hardwood floor and up the side of the couch. Where we had fallen asleep tangled in a blanket, his arm was draped over me. Heavy and warm. For a moment, I didn't move. I just listened. The distant hum of traffic. The faint ticking of the clock in the kitchen. His steady breathing against my shoulder. It felt peaceful, and that terrified me. Because peace meant permanence, and permanence meant commitment. Are you ready for that? My mind whispered. Adrian shifted slightly, his hand brushing absent-mindedly along my side before he blinked awake. Morning, he murmured, voice rough with sleep. Morning. He studied my face, searching. You okay? There it was, again his instinct to check in. I'm good, I said. But even as I said it, he tilted his head. You're thinking you always say that? 'Cause you always are. Pushed himself up on one elbow. Brushing his fingers lightly through my hair. Talk to me. I sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around my shoulders more for comfort than warmth. I haven't done this in a while, I admitted. Done what? Stayed. The word felt heavier than it should have. I've dated, I continued, eyes on the floor, but I've always kept one foot out the door. Just in case. Just in case what? In case they decide I'm too much. Or not enough. In case it gets complicated. In case I have to explain myself to family again. Adrian was quiet, listening, really listening. I got tired of preparing for people to leave, I said softly. So I started leaving first. Confession hung between us. Vulnerable, honest. Adrian reached for my hand, interlacing our fingers like he had in the street that night. I'm not planning on leaving, he said gently. That's what scares me. He thinks I'm the brave one, but staying. Staying is harder than holding hands in front of an ex. Staying means letting someone see every crack, every doubt. I moved closer to him on the couch, close enough that our knees touched again. Daniel, I said carefully, I don't want to rush you. I don't need a label tomorrow. I just need honesty. You have that. Good, because I don't want almosts anymore. Not emotionally either. He looked up at me then, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. He wasn't afraid of me. He was afraid of how much this mattered. A week later, the test came, not in the form of Marcus, not in a dramatic confrontation, but in a simple invitation. Adrian stood in my doorway that Friday evening, hands tucked into his jacket pockets. "There's a gallery opening tonight," he said casually. "A friend of mine is exhibiting." "That's great." He nodded. "It's kind of a big crowd?" I knew what he meant. Friends, co-workers, acquaintances, people who would ask questions, people who would see us together. "You want me to come?" I asked quietly. He met my eyes. "I do." There was no pressure in his tone, just hope. After he left to get ready, I stood alone in my apartment, staring at my reflection. This wasn't about a gallery. This was about visibility, about stepping fully into something real. Growing up, I'd learned subtlety, caution, the art of neutral pronouns and deflected questions, even in adulthood. I'd mastered the careful balance of being open, but not too open. Was I ready to stop balancing? My phone buzzed. "Adrian, no pressure. Just wanted you there." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back, "Me. Save me a drink." The space buzzed with conversation and soft music. Art lined the white walls, as abstract and bold. Adrian spotted me almost immediately, and the smile that spread across his face when he did. That answered every doubt. He crossed the room quickly, stopping just in front of me. "You came? Don't sound so surprised." "I'm not." He paused. "Okay, maybe a little." I nudged his shoulder lightly. "Rude," he laughed, and without hesitation placed his hand at the small of my back. Subtle, but unmistakable. My pulse jumped, but I didn't step away. His friends approached one by one. "Daniel, this is Sam." "Daniel, meet Lena." Each introduction was simple, natural, no awkward pauses, no careful language, just "This is Daniel." And every time he said my name, there was something steady in his voice, something proud. Halfway through the evening, someone asked the question, "So, how did you two meet?" Adrian glanced at me, a playful glint in his eye. I could have downplayed it, could have said, "We're neighbors," could have left it vague instead. I smiled. "I caught him dancing in his kitchen," I said. Laughter rippled around us. Adrian groaned dramatically. I knew leaving the blinds open would haunt me. "It worked, didn't it?" I teased. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, just enough for only me to hear. "Best decision I ever made." And in that moment, with his hand warm against my back and the room alive around us, I stopped feeling like an observer. I wasn't watching from across the courtyard anymore. I was in it fully. Later that night, we stood outside the building again. The same courtyard, the same windows. Only now, nothing felt hidden. "You were incredible in there," Adrian said softly. "I barely did anything. You stayed." He reached up and adjusted my collar one more time. "You always fix that," I said, smiling. "Habit." His fingers lingered at my neck, gentle. "Are you scared?" He asked. "Yes." "Good." I blinked. "Good. It means this matters." He stepped closer, resting his forehead against mine. "I don't need forever tonight," he whispered. "I just need you not to run." I exhaled slowly. "I'm not running." He searched my face. "You sure?" Instead of answering, I closed the distance and kissed him. Not tentative, not testing. Certain. When I pulled back, held his gaze. "I'm done watching from windows," I said quietly. "If we're doing this, we're doing it in the light." His smile was slow and full. "Yeah." "Yeah." The courtyard looked the same, but everything else had changed. Adrian was dancing in the kitchen again. Only this time, was dancing with him. Music played from his speaker as he spun me dramatically, nearly knocking into the counter. "Careful," I laughed. "You love it?" He dipped down to pick up a spoon he'd dropped, and I couldn't resist stealing an amused glance. He caught me immediately. "Seriously?" he teased. "Old habits." He stood, stepping close and tugging me lightly by the waist. "You're impossible. You're distracting." He brushed his lips softly against mine, quick but full of warmth. No fear, no hesitation. Just us. The blinds were open, the world could see, and for the first time in my life I didn't care who was watching. I thought I caught my neighbor doing the wrong thing, but loving openly. Choosing courage over comfort, stepping into the light instead of hiding behind glass. There was nothing wrong about that. Sometimes the most shocking love stories aren't about scandal, they're about bravery. And sometimes all it takes is a window left slightly open,